Hi, welcome to North of 60. I'm Jane Howington, your host today, and we're extremely lucky to have a panel of 3 new council members to the Hudson City Council. So we're going to just be talking a little bit about what their feelings are about senior issues, anything north of 60, as well as what their ideas and interests are for while they serve on council. So because there's 3 of us and it's only half an hour, I'm not going to drone on about my introduction. I'm going to get right to it and ask them to introduce themselves and tell us what they think is the best thing about living in Hudson. So let's start with Kyle.
Thank you, Jane. The best thing about living in Hudson, I mean, most people would say it's a wonderful downtown area, and it's definitely a strong area that drew us in. If I had to pick my favorite thing in my 5 years here now in Hudson, would be our neighbors. The people around us really make what Hudson is and why it's so great is the people that live here.
The community.
We're very lucky to have some wonderful neighbors, and of course the community as a whole.
Right. And so much to do.
Oh, there's every weekend, right? Every week there's always another event. It's wonderful.
How about you, Sam? Do you go by Sam or Samantha?
I go by Sam.
Okay.
Samantha Duramo, one of the 3 new council at-large members. So Kyle's answer was wonderful, but I'm going to say that one of my favorite things after being involved in the community more in this last year, especially campaigning, I will say is the history and the clock tower.
Oh, very good. And there's
a lot of rich history that I don't think people realize, probably.
Mm-hmm. Really. I worked in the visitor center, volunteered in the visitor center for a long time, and you just kind of learn by osmosis with all of that. It's amazing.
Yes, very cool.
Okay, Amanda, how about you?
Hi, Amanda Weinstein. Thanks for having us today. My favorite thing, I am going to have to stick with downtown. From our historic Main Street to our First and Main, it is a great place that my kids and I love to bike down or walk down, and there's always something to do, especially in the summer. With the concert series and the restaurants and shopping, we really find ourselves downtown quite a bit, and it just makes it enjoyable, a walkable city that people want to be for a long time.
Great, thanks. Well, now we have to figure out how to get more senior events in the downtown green, so that'll be something I'll have to think about. I wanted to ask you, since you were elected in November, you took your seats in office in December, and now it's January, do you feel accustomed to it, or are you still kind of...
Sorry, I don't want to jump in. No, it's a lot to take in, even just the procedures. I know I can look to Kyle. Kyle, I think, is our Robert's Rules of Order expert. Just getting the procedures, it's not a natural feeling, I don't think. I'm used to just like speaking and saying what I think whenever I want, and I interrupt people. And in my family, talking is a competitive sport. And it is not that at council. You have to like wait your turn, know when to get like the president's eye. And so that I feel like is hard. It's not a natural thing for me, but it's been a lot of fun. Still meeting with people, still having coffees with people, seeing what they need. And it's been a lot of fun, but I'm definitely still learning.
What about you?
Well, I think what we talked about when we were campaigning, all 3 of us, and what we have to bring as a team, I think what's really awesome about that is that we all 3 are on, and like she said, each of us have something special that we bring. And I know I can always go to Kyle for certain already rules and regulations, so that's pretty awesome. The beginning it was a little bit overwhelming, I'm not going to lie. There was a lot very quickly, and it's the holiday season, and it was very overwhelming. But I think what I've learned already is just how wonderful our city staff is, and the resources we have and the support we have. So that kind of makes me feel better knowing that we have the tools that we need.
It's a little unsettling when you walk in and like the first meeting or second meeting, you have to pass the budget.
Sure, yeah.
So Kyle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, the budget, I think I spent over 2 hours with Jeff Knobloch last week going over the 5-year plan. I mean, there's just so much to learn. Reading Robert's Rules of Order, the city code and charter and ordinances, and all the different projects that the city's actively working on and setting up to work on. So absolutely, is there a lot to take in for sure. But as Sam said, the staff has been wonderful. Educating us, the current council members who have been there, kind of showing us the ropes have been great. We had a wonderful discussion last night. Skylar did some great research on proposed change to the charter, and he had a lot of really good feedback on it. So having those discussions, learning has been really good.
Great. Well, we are north of 60, and I want to start getting into some questions about your knowledge or your attitude or your feelings about issues that senior citizens have to deal with. And the first one I want to bring up is probably a little background. You probably have, but you may have looked at the census over time and seen that our census over the last 20 years, the people over 55 have been growing. That's a growing population. Our total population is fairly stagnant, but that percentage of the population is growing. And so how do we handle that? Do you have any ideas? Sam, I'm going to ask you first. What are you thinking about, helping the seniors with programs, or is there anything in your mind that you're thinking about?
Yeah, I would say I'm very passionate about seniors just in general because of my career in healthcare. And when I was knocking doors, I can tell you the one thing that was always talked about, and these are residents that might be new empty nesters, but they're already thinking about transitioning. Was every single person said they want to stay in Hudson, but what do they do? Where do they go to downsize? And even in my neighborhood alone, I have some of the residents that have been there since the 90s that are in their 80s and 90s that are, have nowhere to go, or they're actually building on a suite on their first floor, which is kind of crazy, to think that is more cost effective for them than to have an option because they want to stay in this town and they like their community and they love their neighbors. So we have our retreat Saturday, and it is really, I know it's really important for all of us. We really want to look into how can we provide some other options for, older adults, empty nesters, to downsize but stay in the community and is affordable. And that's obviously not going to be an easy thing to do, but I think, we're all in different boards and kind of helping to facilitate what that looks like will be, I think, really impactful.
Cool. Good. Kyle?
It's a good question. Everyone always talks about property that can be downsized to, more townhome style, things like we have a few in the downtown area. And that's tough because even if we are able to facilitate properties that can be built that way, it's never going to meet the entire need. Like you said, I think it was 20% of the population now. So while I think absolutely we should look for those opportunities, we should also focus, I think, on improving the lives of those who are living still in those maybe houses that are bigger for them, further away from the downtown. Whether it's, I know we've been talking potential senior transportation, continuing the approach to the sidewalks, connecting as many as we can to the downtown. And as you mentioned, trying to have more senior-focused activities in our downtown areas. I think are all great ideas. I think it'll be a multifaceted approach, and won't have any one answer. But.
Great. What about you, Amanda?
I mean, the fact that so many seniors want to stay in Hudson is a real testament to the fact that Hudson is a great place to live. And we want people to live here for as long as they want to be here. So that, I think, basically shows how great Hudson is, just in terms of livability. But doesn't mean it's perfect. So I heard the same things that Sam heard on the doors of, we don't have a lot of diversity in housing. Hudson, is not unlike other areas where we do have more seniors and people are aging in place and want to age in place, but they want housing that's appropriate, that fits their needs, to have that first floor primary bedroom, to have a smaller house where you're not, you don't have an acre to mow and multiple bedrooms. Heard that from a lot of people. And it's actually not just senior citizens, so they actually get along very well, our senior citizens with their 20-somethings. The senior citizens and the 20-somethings often want the exact same thing. They want a smaller house, smaller living with less to manage, and they want it near downtown where they can walk to restaurants and bars and shopping and all of that.
Right.
And so it actually meets the needs of more people than we often think. But it can be a little bit harder for Hudson than other areas because we're a small town. Right? So we don't have, the ready-to-go places that some larger towns like Akron or Cleveland might have. So it's going to take some work to think about what can go in our downtown to meet the diversity of housing needs for our senior citizens. And what it also means is that senior citizens, it's not a niche category of, this is a significant part of what we should be thinking about, and how do we meet the needs of our senior citizens, whether it's from transportation and housing to activities and the spaces that seniors need and want.
Well, I think all of us have kind of touched on housing, and as a senior myself, I know that there are a lot of people that I interact with that have either had to go into an assisted living because there wasn't any place else, or they had to go to Stowe, Aurora, or Twinsburg. And there's almost like a little ring around Hudson for people that didn't want to leave Hudson, but didn't have anything else. And just as an aside, going back to 2008 when the economic downturn happened, many empty nesters just stayed in their houses, in the big houses. Well, then they don't have a mortgage. And to try and find a smaller place, they don't want to take out a mortgage. So it's quite a conundrum with,
with higher rates
housing.
now too.
Absolutely. And I don't know how the zoning code deals with it now. I know the zoning code used to, in certain areas, prohibit in-law apartments. So
Interesting.
that too is another thing to look at, that if you want to age in place, maybe you can age in place where your kids are, but then you'd need an in-law apartment or something. So anyhow.
That's right. My husband and I have already talked about that. We have 3 children and busy lives, and it would be nice to get parents even closer, especially as parents age and have mobility issues, and to have them in the house. Intergenerational houses are much more common today.
I have my mom, we converted our garage into, and I had to be careful. There are certain definitions without going too much into it. And I couldn't have a full bathroom, a washroom, and a kitchen. I had to leave one of them out in order to qualify, otherwise I wouldn't be allowed to do it. Now that may have changed by now, but it's so much better. I take her to doctor's appointments, without having to interrupt the rest of the family's lives. But you mentioned transportation, and I wanted to bring that up because we have quite a few assisted living areas, and they have vans, so they'll take their folks to doctor's appointments or shopping. But the general public, all of our empty nesters and seniors that are still in the neighborhoods, like Sam, like you mentioned, in their 80s and 90s, if they don't have kids, they can't get to it. So we've been talking, the Senior Network has been talking with the city about a van and so on. But whether or not that's a good idea, I don't know. I just was curious what your thoughts were. Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. I know, for example, just Twinsburg has 65 and over. I believe it's a 5-mile radius. Don't quote me on that. For doctor's appointments specifically. So you can even specify, like, we're not going to take you shopping necessarily, for luxury items, but doctor's appointments or grocery store is really important, and not everyone can afford grocery delivery or things like that. So I think to be able to offer that, we're behind in that. We should be offering more for our seniors, and so we just need to kind of get where other communities are in regards to that.
What about you, Kyle?
I really like it when an idea can be modeled off of another community, especially one in the area. So Twinsburg, having already pursued this, allows us to kind of reach out to them, see what it looks like from a financial standpoint. What is their policy that they have established? So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, we can kind of go with what they've seen it be successful. I love the idea because, as I mentioned before, I definitely want to see us focus on allowing for different types of housing that the seniors would like. There's no way we'll be able to address everybody. So having an alternative like this for those people who do decide they want to stay in their house. Some people they do like that. It's a lot for them to take care of, but it's where they've been for 30 plus years, and that's where they want to stay. So having an option like that, I think, is a really good idea.
Many of my friends can't imagine why I still stay in a 2.5-acre property where I need to ride the tractor every day. It's fun right now.
That's my grandmother. Yeah, she's still out, man away on her. It's got to be 4 acres, and she, until very recently, was still riding that mower out there. Loved it.
Amanda, your thoughts on that? Transportation or any other things besides just a van?
I think we need to think flexibly about how we let people age in place if that's what they want, right? So, and how do we meet their needs? Public transportation is hard for smaller towns, right? Again, we're not a larger town that has a ton of routes and ability, and a lot of it needs flexibility to go to a specific appointment or to get a specific thing, to go to the pharmacy, whatever seniors need to make sure that they can be healthy and get what they need. And so I think it's also not just about transportation, but also about help. It could be help with snowplow and plowing their driveways. It could be help. I know the mayor's addressed clearing your gutters. There's a lot of things where they might need a little bit of help to age in place comfortably. And I think it's definitely something the city needs to explore to make sure that that we're all living comfortably in Hudson.
If I can cut it, we have a lot of nonprofits here in Hudson. It's something that potentially the city could partner with something like Rotary Club, service organizations to address things like you just mentioned, snow plowing and gutter clearing. So there's a lot of opportunities there.
That is true. It's a good point. There are a lot of nonprofits, and I think you mentioned this in one of your presentations. When you identify a need, then you can go to the nonprofits and see if they want to partner with you. It's just we have to identify all those needs and so on. So as we begin to close down a little bit, I want to just focus a little bit away from just seniors. Many of our services already impact seniors, whether it's the fire, EMS, or recreation, or all of that. So kind of becoming a little bit more inclusive in the conversation is, where do you see our biggest challenges coming up, specifically for council and for you as policy and decision makers? What do you see in the next year or two that we're going to need to really focus on and identify some of those items? Who wants to go first?
So I'll go first. Full disclosure, I'm an economist. So I see the biggest thing that we need to focus on and think about is our economy. And why do I say that? We just talked about a lot of things that would be great for seniors. Transportation, other services, how do we pay for that, right? Well, our city budget is largely coming from our economy, coming from income taxes and sales taxes that we generate. And to get that money for those, all of the things that we want, we need to make sure that we have businesses here that want to start here, stay here, grow here in Hudson. And when we drive around and look around, when you have empty lots in our downtown, when we have Joann's that have left, those are some issues. Those are not small issues, but they're also exciting issues. I think it is, downtown, a little bit of a blank slate of what could happen. Joann's is a little bit of a blank slate of what could happen. I think it is disappointing and sad that Joann's closed, but I am excited about what the next chapter of that space looks like, and I think it is very important that we move on these empty spaces, whether it's downtown, Joann's, the YDC Center on Hines Hill, to make sure that we get some economic development in this town so that we can pay for all of the great services that we want to see in Hudson.
Good. I was thinking if we had time, I'd mention Joann's because I don't know if you've ever been in the non-retail portion, but they need like little scooters to get from one end to the other.
Huge.
It's amazing. So, Sam?
Like what Amanda said, I think there is a lot of really exciting things coming, but I think what I have already learned is nothing is quick. So, hopefully we can start to get things in place and have a plan. For me, I would like to have an outlook moving forward of our services of fire and EMS. What is our 5-year outlook? Are we planning to have a second, smaller fire department? After we did that study, there was a lot of great suggestions that I think we need to really consider and not, put this on the back burner because we are anticipating having, full-time staffing this summer. That shouldn't be our end goal, and we should be satisfied for that. We need to think, okay, what's next for fire services and EMS, especially as you said with the aging population. And a lot of our calls are coming from some of the assisted livings. So we need to be a little bit creative and have some better ideas moving forward for that too.
I think I did kind of think about bringing that up, that as the small EMS department, we've done a lot of transports. We do a lot of transports. We know people. The department knows people. They know there's this 85-year-old person, and if they fell, you just go out and pick them up, and that's okay. And there's an awful lot of that. And you're right, with the number of assisted livings we have, we do an awful lot of that. So would that change with a full-time department?
right.
Yeah, that's a good example. How about you, Kyle?
Well, if anyone paid attention to my campaign, you'll know near and dear to my heart is our municipally owned fiber network, Velocity Broadband. When you're talking city, it's economics, it's revenue, et cetera. You can try to increase revenue, you can try to lower expenses, and obviously as the city and the residents want lots of great services, we would like to increase our revenue. One of those ways I really think is through Velocity Broadband. As of COVID, if you were to look at some of the top employers that pay income tax to Hudson, one of them would be Progressive Insurance. Mm-hmm. Progressive Insurance does not have any sort of physical location in Hudson, but it went fully remote, and we have a very large remote workforce in Hudson. Myself as well. So to continue attracting, that kind of talent, investing in our internet infrastructure is very important to me. Not only does it increase, our revenue, increase through both the fees paid for the service and, the increase in income taxes, but then you also have the plus side of the better service for our residents, especially seniors, right? A lot of them have a lot of medical appointments. I'm sure many of them teledoc. That's something you want, a reliable connection with your doctor that you don't have to worry about. So for me, that is a huge focus, both economically and quality of life.
Yeah, and if I could just piggyback on what he said,
Yeah.
right? So Sam talked about the history of this town. We all are here because we love the charm of Hudson. I don't think there's anyone in Hudson who says otherwise. And what Kyle's talking about with the remote work is we can add more people working here, and we don't even need to do it with a building, right? We don't even have to build one building for that. My husband and I are both also remote workers, and we work out of our house. We don't need a building here in Hudson. So we can actually grow our tax base, really marketing ourselves and really building on the broadband by getting that out to households and marketing our town as this is a great place to be a remote worker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting with Velocity Broadband, and as developments happen so quickly and more, like you mentioned, the teledoctor and so on, there are so many things that you can add to Velocity that'll bring in revenue. So
and I think that's also important for our senior citizens too, is making sure, I know at a lot of the retirement facilities, they have a little bit more access, as you mentioned, to transportation and even some training on digital tools, right? But if you're not at that retirement facility and you don't have the access, telemedicine is a great way to give people access if they don't need to see a doctor face-to-face, where they have fewer visits.
And to help them understand how to do that.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
And just a little plug for the Senior Network, we partnered with Western Reserve, and we had some of those kids come over, and we had a day-long session. People could bring in their device, and they would help them, and it was pretty amazing. Those are little things we don't think about really, but they add.
It's amazing. I've already had my daughter help me with a program called Canva, and which they were using in school, and I started to use it for work, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. She's like, I'll help you, Mom. And I was like, oh my gosh, my 11-year-old's already teaching me how to do tech things. It's fine.
Well, that's good. We'll invite her to one of the next sessions. Well, we are getting fairly close to the end. I know that with three of you, it was hard for you to really, show what your interests are and so on, but it was an introduction, and I hope that was good. So I wanted to give you each a minute or two to kind of close up. If there's anything that maybe you wanted to talk about that we didn't talk about or we didn't discuss or whatever. And as a side note, I'm really happy that we were able to do this before the retreat instead of after. Who should I start with? Sam.
Actually, I have a question for you about, I know a rec center in general is super important to the community. Do you feel like what we're providing right now is sufficient, and are the seniors happy with going to City Hall?
I think that right now the seniors are happy with going to City Hall. They love the space. The city's been very good about putting clocks up when we need clocks, or getting water if we need water, little things that really make it comfortable. I will tell you that we pretty much maxed out the space for our Christmas party.
I saw pictures.
It
was great.
It was great, but it was like we looked
Wow.
around, and if we wanted to add another line of tables, there wasn't enough room to do that. And the idea of that having to maybe turn people away is not something we really want to do. So we're going to have to rethink that a little bit, and maybe have to set up the food in another room so there's extra room. But that's really the only thing that we're having a little bit of a space issue for. We're doing fairly well. I know we've got to be careful about fitness things, because there's certain liabilities and stuff with the city and allowing us to do physical stuff. So we would welcome expanding those programs, and it's not something that we could do a drop in. I think you both mentioned Twinsburg, and many of the communities around here have senior citizen centers, and they have a levy that's been approved, so they have some guaranteed funding.
I think Stowe just opened a new one, right?
Yes, yeah, on Fish Creek Road. So, you know, there is we can use them, like you mentioned, to kind of model some of our programs after, but we also have to be a little bit careful because our funding cycle, we're a nonprofit as opposed to the city. Now, if the city starts partnering, that's going to be different. So, but it's a great facility. It really helps. And yes, it's a long walk up the driveway, but it's flat, and people with mobility issues, my mom included, can take her walker and go up there. So it's nice. Yeah. But I didn't give you the opportunity to that was the question.
She turned it on you.
I know.
So wrapping up, what I'm looking forward to doing this year. Yeah, so I think this is going to be a really exciting year, and I think when you're meeting with some other council members at the end of the year to kind of see what we're doing, I think we'll be telling, but I think our collaboration and respectfulness of one another is going to really help our new city council kind of to get farther and to be more productive and get things done. So
Good.
That's really what I'm most looking forward to.
Great. Kyle, how about you?
I got the opportunity to talk about velocity a little bit, but I'm going to close with that as that's also that's just my biggest thing. You know, taking learnings from the pilot neighborhoods that we were able to launch at the end of last year and the neighborhoods that we're just starting into this year, making sure that we're able to not only get the fiber to your house, but get it hooked up, and so you can be online as fast as possible. My goal is by the end of my first 4 years that every single household in Hudson has access to fiber, whether it's Velocity or another provider. But that is the goal, and so that starts
Great.
with coming out of the gate and
Good.
knocking it out of the park.
Great. And last for you?
Well, I'd love to talk about the inclusive playground, which we have not talked about yet. Should be opening this summer, and I have 3 young kids, so I'm of course excited about this great new playground. However, what a lot of people don't realize is also great for our senior citizens. When we have a playground that is fully inclusive, what that means is that there are ramps and easier ways to get to every part of this playground, which means that if you're a grandparent or a great-grandparent and you want to take your grandkids on this playground, you will be able to get to all of the parts they are at. You will be, it's not just right sitting on a bench and watching them, right? You can actually interact with your kids throughout the whole playground, and there is even a zip line, and it has got a way to strap people in there, so I hope to see our senior citizens on that zip line. There's a cute video of a senior citizen on a zip line at another park, and I really think our senior citizens are going to enjoy this park and be able to interact with their grandkids on it.
And that will be another opportunity for some kind of a program or something
Absolutely.
to have them have a party at the inclusive playground when
Love
it
it.
opens. So, well, thank you all for coming and introducing yourself again to the community and specifically to our senior citizens. And for those in the audience, thank you for viewing us and visiting with us. As always, this is also a YouTube. It runs on community TV. You can access it through the website, but you also can access it through YouTube. And I believe we have the address of the site that will come up at the end of the program. And until then, stay healthy, stay sweet and happy, and we'll see you again on North of 60.